Welcome to episode 7 of this special series of short videos covering the key 2025 budget announcements. Today, we're looking at two concessions regarding business and agricultural property relief. In the 2024 budget, the government announced a major change to business and agricultural property relief. Currently, if assets qualify for relief, the amount of relief is unlimited. So, whether you own a business worth £1 million or £100 million, if the conditions are met, the whole lot can be passed on your death-free from inheritance tax. However, from 6th April 2026, a £1 million cap on 100% relief will apply in respect of both reliefs, with anything over £1 million being eligible for relief at 50%. To soften the blow, the inheritance tax can be paid in interest-free instalments, but the reality is that many farms and businesses may have to be sold off or carved up in order to pay inheritance tax, where previously it didn't apply. The measure led to significant backlash from the farming community, who drove their tractors to London to protest. The protests continue to this day, despite a key easement being announced at Budget 2025. Originally, a use it or lose it policy was going to apply to the allowance. That is, if you left everything to your spouse or civil partner, which is exempt from inheritance tax anyway, your £1 million allowance would be wasted instead of transferring to your spouse or civil partner's estate. At Budget 2025, a very welcome easement was announced. The £1 million allowance will now be transferable between spouses and civil partners, in line with the nil rate band and residence nil rate band. Next, we will look at how this will work in practice. Additionally, the unused allowance can be claimed even if the first spouse or civil partner died before 6th April 2026, when the cap on 100% relief comes into force. Under the original iteration of the rules, those that are already widowed would have been limited to the £1 million allowance. In practice, this means that when the second spouse or civil partner passes away, they can pass on £2 million worth of agricultural and business property free from inheritance tax. Their estate will claim the additional unused allowance, and it is anticipated that this will work in the same way as the transferable nil rate bands. So, for example, if we take a married couple and the husband dies in 2026, leaving everything to his wife, which is exempt from inheritance tax, the wife lives another 10 years, at which time the allowance may have increased incrementally. The wife's estate will be able to claim 100% relief on business and agricultural property, worth 2 times the value of the allowance in force at that time. That is, the unused allowance claimed from the husband's estate isn't limited to the amount that was available when he died. Now we're going to look at an example to show the benefit of the allowance being transferable. Here we have Nigel and Wendy, a married couple. Nigel owns a trading company worth £1.8 million, and the shares in that company qualify for business property relief. When Nigel dies, Wendy inherits his shares in the company. There's no inheritance tax to pay because transfers between spouses are exempt from inheritance tax. Now, when Wendy passes away, some years later, she is going to leave the shares to her and Nigel's 2 children. The company is now worth £2 million, and the shares still qualify for business property relief. As Nigel's unused allowance is transferable thanks to the update made at Budget 2025, Wendy's estate can claim his unused £1 million allowance. Wendy's estate can therefore claim 100% business property relief on the full value of £2 million, allowing the company to pass to the next generation free from inheritance tax. Had the allowance not been transferable, as was previously intended, inheritance tax of £200,000 would have been charged on the shares, as Wendy's estate would only get 100% relief on the first £1 million and 50% on the second £1 million. Under the previous version of the rules, Nigel and Wendy's family may have had to pay £200,000 in inheritance tax, or if they had the time and the inclination to plan ahead, Nigel could have changed his will to make sure his £1 million allowance was used on his death. This slide shows what would have needed to happen on Nigel's death to save inheritance tax. Nigel would have needed to leave £1 million worth of shares to his children and £800,000 worth to Wendy. This may work just fine for some families, but in this case, the children are a little too young and inexperienced to own such valuable shares. Wendy is also left with a smaller stake in the company than her children combined, and she doesn't have control of the company. To address these issues, a trust could have been set up to hold the children's shares, but this just adds another layer of cost and complexity to the situation. We're sure you'll agree that the result of the transferable allowance is much better and simpler. In terms of opportunities for savings, for married couples and civil partners, the savings are in the form of flexibility to delay succession until the second death, as we just saw in the example. There is, however, a real opportunity for widows and widowers who have become entitled to an additional £1 million allowance overnight. Don't forget, they're entitled to the extra allowance even if their spouse died many years ago or didn't own business or agricultural property when they died. If their asset base does not currently include assets that qualify for relief, they could look to invest in such assets. However, we would strongly recommend they get the help of a financial advisor, as such investments are typically high risk. Investing £2 million in qualifying assets would save up to £800,000 in inheritance tax after 2 years.
That concludes the 7th episode of this budget special series. 3 to go, and we'll be looking at the anti-avoidance rules on share reorganisations, the mansion tax, and the electric vehicle excise duty to round things up. If you are watching on our YouTube channel, don't forget to like and subscribe so you receive notifications of future episodes. Do pop along to our webshop, where you can find all of our tax solutions in one place. The link is shown below.